So the almighty Dodgers strike yet again in a historic free agency by signing Japanese star Yoshinobu Yamamoto, who's an ace out of Japan. And they signed him to a 12-year, $325 million contract. So let's jump into the details. All right, so here's our $325 million man that the Dodgers are conveniently adding right into the top of their rotation. And you see here just a quick highlights of the man himself. He has some nasty stuff, which is what earns you over $300 million for 12 years. And looking at Jeff Passan's reporting for ESPN, you could see that he was highly sought after. Multiple teams, including, my favorite team, the Yankees, were in the mix on him. This deal pairs Yamamoto up with, of course, Shohei Ohtani on the Los Angeles Dodgers. And what you could see here is some interesting tidbits about this contract. Is clearly 12 years is a lot of time for any pitcher. But when you look at it compared to what was a massive deal for the Yankees and Garrett Cole, this actually surpasses that by about 1 million from that Garrett Cole's deal. He got signed for 324 million. But we have to dissect what we think about this. So what is your take on the Dodgers going out and spending 325 million, 12 years committed to Yoshinobu Yamamoto from Japan? Let's not forget that Yamamoto is only 25 years old. He's won 3 consecutive MVP awards and also the Nippon Professionals Baseball Award that's equivalent to the Cy Young as well. And when you look at it, they say nobody in the history of that league in the 74 years has really dominated like Yamamoto has. He's pitched over 820 innings and his ERA is 1.65.
Wow.
So knowing all of that, what's your take on this massive deal for Yamamoto?
Well, I mean, is he going to get paid 1 million per year? Like, Ohtani, is the deal structured like that and he's going to get everything in the end? I doubt it. I mean, the Dodgers,
it's not deferred. No,
the Dodgers are sneaky, but I mean, I don't know. I actually read something too, where they said that this was the largest contract, obviously, for anyone who hasn't pitched a professional pitch in the MLB, which is crazy to think about. So you really got to put things into perspective. I think if the Dodgers do not win the World Series this year or next year or whatever, in the next few years is going to be the biggest disgrace in the history of sports. Maybe let's just put it out there, because we know, obviously, Ohtani's superhuman, it seems like, even though he's hurt. But what I'm trying to get at is that we know that certain Japanese players do come over and their skill doesn't transition well in the MLB. MLB hitters are different type of hitters. They're obviously the best in the world. So I think, obviously, you say he has a 1.65 ERA and 820 innings, which shows that, he has supreme skill. But when you come to the MLB, things may not go that well for a lot of these pitchers. And the past shows that they kind of sometimes get rocked. It's to be real. You have your pitchers like what was the Yankee guy? Tanaka. Yeah, Tanaka transitioned well. He was a top guy in Japan, transitioned well, but I wouldn't say he was elite. Like, he was good. He probably made an all-star team, and I would say he's a Yankee, like, the Yankee fans love him. But overall, he wasn't like a, lights out. He's not like an Ohtani. So I think to give $325 million to one player over 12 years to commit, I don't know, man. I think if this guy does not, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's like buying a stock, a penny stock, when it pumps up to the top and then you buy in the top and you want it to go higher, it goes down. You know what I'm trying to say? So maybe the analogy wasn't perfect there. But what I'm saying is that I feel like the Dodgers this offseason are buying high, if that makes any sense. They're not really getting value. They're saying, screw the value. We're just going to buy at the peak. And that has a tendency to not work in the favor in sports.
Yeah, I definitely see your line of thinking, and I think you're right. I think there's a lot of signings, Ohtani obviously being the biggest example, but this Yamamoto signing feels like that to me too. There's just a lot of hype involved, and I know, Yamamoto's stats are off the charts, but they're buying into a lot of what they hopefully are pricing in as multiple championships, which is a huge risk, because you have several teams that could have an all-star lineup. And one thing is for sure, at the beginning of the season, you have your 5 starters. By the end of the season, that rotation is decimated. It's not the
Yeah.
same rotation, right? And then
Mhm.
also your starting lineup, like you have 1 to 9, and on paper, right, you look like you're going to be an all-star team. And by the end of the season, that lineup is completely filled in with rotational utility players. That is going to happen eventually to any team, and I think the Dodgers included. So what they're doing by these massive contracts is taking some really big risks. And I think you're right. I agree. They're buying into a lot of the hype with Yamamoto. I do feel, though, with some of the examples you provided, it seems like a really crazy contract. And I do think it is a crazy contract. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to agree.
Yeah.
But however, when you look at a lot of the Japanese pitchers over the years that have come over to pitch in the US, what
Mhm.
I will say is I think there's been a lot of success with those pitchers. You know, I think about, like you said, Tanaka. I think about like Dice K. Remember Dice K?
Yeah,
Matsuzaka
Matsuzaka.
with
Yeah.
the Red Sox. He had a good stint. You have guys like Hideo Nomo was a great pitcher with the Dodgers as well. Several examples that come to mind. So Japanese pitchers do
Yeah,
have a
but
good
they weren't
track.
paying they weren't getting paid $325 million off the shot. Like, I don't know what Tanaka's contract was. I think I could be spitballing. I think it was about like 80 million or something like that. I don't know why that's in my head, maybe 100. But they weren't getting 325 million. That's where the disconnect is for me. I know what you're saying. I get that. It's just the huge commitment. Baseball contracts are guaranteed, right? So that's 12 years. That's guaranteed 325 no matter what. You're with them like a tattoo. That's stuck.
Yeah, good luck
At
getting
least
that
12
tattoo
years.
on.
At least
Yeah.
12 years.
And they did 12 years. He's 25. He'll be 37 at the end of it. That's the other side. So what I would argue is that I could see this contract being a good one in the of course on the beginning of it, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of my experience with the Japanese pitchers that come over is I feel like, and you tell me if you disagree and let us know in the comments, but I feel like they ultimately have a lot of success like in the early part, like when they first come over, like those first 2, 3, 4 years, it seems like the league is figuring them out. They're getting their pitches to still deceive hitters. But once these guys go through the league a couple times, I feel like in the first like maybe 3, 4, 5 years, they start to really fall off a cliff.
Yeah.
Like in terms of the effectiveness, I feel like that happened with Dice K, Nomo, right? He
Yeah.
came out and he was like a sensation. It was
Yeah.
nobody could hit Hideo Nomo. And then all of a sudden, like in a couple of years, it was like, it's the
Yeah.
same pitches, but it wasn't tricking any of the hitters anymore. These MLB hitters are, in the beginning, they look foolish, but then they start to catch up, right, with what's going on. I think that happens a lot with the Japanese pitchers that come over. So for me, that 12 years, that's the huge risk. And I can't wait to see what that contract looks like for them, not only with Ohtani at the end, but with this Yamamoto deal and how he's going to be looking once the league figures him out. Because if history is any indicator of what's going to happen in the future, I do feel like no matter how dominant he is in the Japanese league, the MLB hitters here are going to start figuring him out. And the only question is, when is that going to happen? And is it going to be worth the $325 million at that point?